Hello and welcome to Meet Your Inspiration podcast with Meri and Rich. Here we're talking about inspiration, motivation, and empowerment. Our guests are ordinary people who became extraordinary, and with sharing their stories, we want to encourage you to become the person you want to be and to go beyond your dreams.
This morning we're back in Hempstead House again for our interview, our amazing hosts, where they have an incredible hotel, amazing food, incredible wine, and amazing staff. And it's always a pleasure to be back here. It's a pleasure to welcome Brian to be with us this morning,
Hello.
who is a sommelier. Now, before we start with Brian, we also want to thank as well our sponsor, which is What's On in Kent. If you're in Kent and you're coming down to this part of the world, then we do recommend you download the app. It's an amazing app which allows you to find the latest events, what's going on, amazing restaurants, hotels, and different things to do. So if you're in Kent and you're looking for something amazing to do, please download the app. So I'd like to welcome Brian, our sommelier.
Hello.
He has the dream job. I think most adults love a glass of wine and enjoy the wine. And Brian is the man who has the job of tasting. So Brian, tell us all about being a sommelier.
Well, thank you, Richard, and thank you, Meri, for the wonderful introduction, and thank you for welcoming me onto the podcast. So, my name is Brian Rodriguez. I'm a freelance, sommelier. A hospitality professional. So, what it reads to me to be a sommelier is to people the ultimate experience and to educate the consumer and the guest into the world of wine, and to enhance their experience when, of course, drinking and appreciating wine. I'm someone who loves to share knowledge, I love to share that experience that I've had with wine with people, and to make it accessible and understandable. I love sharing knowledge, and that's giving that experience. And that's
so how did it start for you in terms of, maybe when you were young, someone offered you a glass of wine? Was that then the inspiration, or did it just evolve?
So for me, I started my hospitality journey at 17, going on 18. So I was at the final year of school, and I needed some money coming in. I needed a job to pay for my driving lessons, and it was at the start. Hospitality itself was an opportunity to get my foot into the world of work. And then, because of my cultural background, my dad was a chef, and he introduced me to flavors and cuisine and experimentation, and he loved to experiment in the kitchen. So with that, I thought, well, you know what? I have a family that love to cook and love to eat and love to explore flavors. I've started in hospitality. Perhaps might be the way forward. I left school, so then I started my career with an agency in Maidstone, and I was thrown around the south and southeast for various hotels, restaurants, and chains.
But what you were doing?
So I was front of house, waiter, and I was deployed to different wedding venues, conferences, events. So that was my position.
Mm-hmm.
And then to get into wine itself, sort of was born from an innate love of flavour and the passion to bring something new, and that's how really my wine journey started. But it happened by extension of my hospitality experience, and of course stemming from my dad's love of flavour and bringing joy to people through cooking, and that's how I started into the world of wine, is actually being really interested in subject matter that I can share knowledge with.
So how you build this knowledge? How did you learn all about wine?
So my wine journey started in 2019, and I thought, you know what? If I'm going to, I love wine. I started appreciating wine at 17. I loved the flavors and I loved the nuances. I thought, you know what? If I'm going to have a career in wine, I want to train at a really good wine school. I want to train at the best. So I trained at the WSET school in London, and I'm level 1, level 2 qualified, partially level 3 qualified, and I also qualified after that with the Court of Master Sommeliers as an introductory sommelier certificate. So really, that I've learnt my craft through rigorous training, years of study, books, tastings, and and meeting people and garnering that knowledge, and really that's and having that good education. I'm blessed with having the wine education that I had in 2019, and the journey continues, of course. I've managed to find my comfort zone, and a subject area that I absolutely love. And it's a studious field. You have to do your homework, lots of reading, of course, lots of tasting, and that's how I've developed my knowledge and passion. It's through good training, thankfully, good training, study, and rigorous tasting.
One of the most important things, obviously, is when you think about wine, is how you get the taste and how you sense the differences. I mean, a lot of people, if you go around to someone's house and they say, "Oh, would you like a glass of wine?" and they just say red or white, and people just go red or white, and they just pour a glass of red or pour a glass of white, and it's that or a rosé or a sparkling, whatever it is. But in the world of tasting and understanding the flavors, one of the most important things is to have the sensitive palate to be able to detect and understand. Now, if you could never be a sommelier if you didn't have a great sense of smell and taste to identify. And you're obviously very fortunate to have that amazing palate to be able to do that. Or do you learn it? How do you learn it?
How do you learn it? So, with good training, what good training teaches you is you can always improve your palate, and you can always identify new flavors. So, my advice to people starting out in wine or starting out in appreciating wine is to actually taste food, taste the flavors. So, if you want to identify strawberries, have a strawberry. If you want to identify lemon in a wine, or the flavor of lemon in a wine, have a lemon, and your recognition of the flavors will align with what you've already tasted. And that's how you would broaden your palate, is by actually trying all these different flavors. So this tastes of this tastes of that. And of course, with good training, thankfully, with good training that I've had, it teaches you what the right and the wrong flavors to look for in a wine. It's anyone with a very clean palate. That's what I would always say. A very boring palate, a very lean and very impartial palate would be able to discern the flavors of a wine when appreciating the wine. So, and there's always room for learning and development. But always try different things, and always, whenever you have the opportunity, try an exotic fruit. Try these different flavors and wonderful foods. And you should, when you're professionally tasting, when you get to a professional level, you will literally smell and taste what those foods are. You would literally taste strawberries, plums, black currants, or in a white wine, for example, apricots, lemons, high acidity, you'll recognize acidity and body, etc., etc. So there's always a way of having a good grounding with developing one's palate. Yeah, absolutely.
How do you think the usual consumer, to the people usually, I believe they like someone like Merlot, someone like Malbec, Sauvignon, etc. How you walk in the shop and you see, I don't know, hundreds
Hundreds,
of
thousands
wine.
of bottles of wine.
Me personally, I am a bit on a. I don't understand. And now I think I work it out what type of wine I prefer or I would like. I'm a big lover of Malbec wine.
You like Malbec? Okay,
Yes.
okay, fair enough.
But obviously after that it's starting. I always thought that French wines will be the top ones.
The top one.
And this is where you can choose. Sometimes it's surprising that it might be a wine that is not that expensive. And it's not French, but actually it's a really good one. How people go in a supermarket and they can choose a wine if they
choose a wine if they
or
have.
if they want to try a new one. Let's say I'm walking in the shop, and I want to choose a different than Malbec just to give a try, how I would be able, what you looking for?
So my general advice, certainly when selecting a wine for the average consumer, or when a customer or a client goes in and looks for a particular bottle of wine, my advice would be to do some research first. There are you can go online, and if you have a particular budget, then your budget would dictate the type of wine that you'd be able to purchase in the supermarket. There are many good value for money wines out there on the marketplace. But the good thing with doing your research, and certainly going on the websites, is that you can filter the price brackets. Okay, so that's a good start. So have an idea in your mind how much you really want to spend. I would suggest is perhaps going to the bars and restaurants, having little tasters, asking the sommeliers or asking the restaurant manager what they recommend, and trying the wines. Essentially, trying the wines before you buy, if that's allowed. And able to, and that sort of gives you a very good grounding to what to look for. If you're a regular drinker, for example, and you're then going into the supermarket, you know what you like. If you like a full-bodied red, and we'll go into what body is in a minute, and all the flavors and everything. If you're looking for, say, a big, fruity, powerful wine, for example, like a Malbec that you say, then you'll be looking. You'll know. Okay, well, Malbec. Well, first of all, Malbec is a grape. It can be made into a red wine, and it's about really knowing what you're comfortable with, and then exploring the others. So, if a bottle of wine has a grape on the label, that would normally mean that the wine is of an average quality, or it's a value for money wine. So if it says Malbec on the bottle or Merlot, and if you're familiar with that, then you would know what it tastes like if you're familiar with that particular bottle of wine that reads the grape on the label. But if a wine doesn't, often it means that actually the producer is a little finer. Then actually perhaps the consumer should be a little more aware in the producer's mind. Well, actually, we are this producer. Some estates don't actually put the names of the grapes on the labels. So you've got to really sort of do your homework first. That's what I recommend. Taste some wines and first, and then find what you're comfortable with, and ask for recommendations before you go in, and that will give you a good start to select a wine in a supermarket. Hopefully, that I know that it's bit of a long-winded answer there.
No, it is. But hopefully, bring another question that I will ask, because I know it's a really good thing when you go in restaurant and you ask for wine, and sometimes they bring you the wine and they always give you to try.
Yes, yeah.
I'm a person that whatever it is, first of all, I'm really embarrassed by that. I don't know why, but I always feel very uncomfortable when they come and they ask. It's their job, but I don't know why. Me as a consumer, and it's not me, I know that lots of people that I've been out with, they bring you the wine, and I feel like, okay, if I don't like, how I'm going to tell them that I don't like? They open the bottle for me.
Great question. So in a restaurant scenario, what the sommelier is doing, or what the professional is doing, is they're seeking your validation for two reasons. One, to ensure that you've chosen the right wine, and secondly, to ensure that the wine's not bad or gone off. So those are the two main reasons as to why a professional would ask for your validation at the restaurant. If we're looking at it very classically, all you're supposed to do is pick the wine glass up, smell it. Yep, that's fine. Thank you very much indeed. And then what would happen is you would be the last person to be served, and all of your guests would be served first. And that's very classic restaurant sommelier service. So really what you should be doing is sending a wine back if it's bad. Because in the eyes of the restaurant, you would have already made your choice. You would have already looked through the wine list and made your decisions before selecting the wine and before it's being opened. So that's just one thing to bear in mind. By all means, if you taste it and say, you know what, this wasn't quite what I expected, it is okay. Do say that, and a good restaurant will say, I'm ever so sorry, but the next bottle of wine will probably taste the same. Can I recommend you something else? And that's the mark of a good restaurant. So don't be afraid to speak up. But the only reason what that is expected of you to speak up is to say that actually the wine's bad.
Yeah, but sometimes the person who is actually pouring the wine is not a sommelier. That's why it's probably coming the question, but still people should be able, if it's not your taste, it's nothing bad to say that.
To say it's not quite your taste.
It's not
Because
quite
I'm one for, a very classic refined service, and I'm one for following the rules. When you're asking for the wine, you are the host of that table. And if you decide actually this wine's not really right for me, or it's not doesn't quite align with what I thought it was going to be, absolutely speak up. And a good restaurant and a good waiter will say, I'm ever so sorry, can I recommend you something else? And all they'll do is take the wine away and suggest you another wine. So really don't be afraid to speak up. If you're that uncomfortable with the wine that you have, send it back.
And when they pour your glass, and you're not obviously someone that, even if I smell, probably I wouldn't be that understanding what's going on. Do you think if I just try it, it's enough?
I'll give you a demonstration. So here we have a Côte de Rhône that I purchased yesterday from this wonderful venue. It's a Côte de Rhône. It's a Syrah. It's 2023. So it's a youthful wine. It is screw cap. And contrary to popular belief, screw cap wines can indeed be corked, and I'll explain that in a second. But basically, what we're doing is, say, for example, I'm the sommelier. And what I would do, I wouldn't open it first and pour it out like I've done, but actually in a restaurant scenario, what I would do is I would show you the bottle. I'd present the bottle, and what I would do is I would read the label to you and ask for your validation. Is this the wine that you've ordered, madam? And then you'd either say yes or no. If you say yes, certainly, then the opening starts. So then you'd open the wine. And I have different tools here that I'll explain in a minute what they are and how we utilize them. So there we are. So there's your taster.
Okay.
There's your taste. So there's your taste. So I've poured out the wine for you. You're in the restaurant. So what you would do essentially to follow the rules, so to speak, you would nose the wine and tell me if is that wine okay for you, madam?
This smells really nice. Do you want to? You probably know
absolutely
more about
wine. I mean, as soon as you open the bottle, I got the nose straight away.
So a good wine should be able to have the nose straight away. It should be able to smell the aromas that are being released from the glass, and that's the mark of a good quality wine, and a wine that is suitable for the occasion. So
in this particular case, we've got a Côte de Rhône. So this means straight away we know it's the Rhône Valley, so we know it's French.
Indeed, you do. So, but what you might not necessarily know is that it's a Syrah or it's a Shiraz. So
it could be one of two grapes.
No, so Shiraz and Syrah are exactly the same grape. They're just different names for the same grape. So Shiraz, Shiraz. It was Syrah what you'd find in Australia. So Barossa Valley Shiraz is the same grape as Syrah. Yeah. So we know that we're in the Côte de Rhône. We know that it's. Syrah is going to be full body, so it's going to fill the mouth. It's going to coat the mouth, and you're going to have quite a full flavour. Just before we start pouring for everyone here, what you're holding is actually an ISO glass, an industry standard organisation glass. So that is a scientifically designed glass for tasting beverages, not just wine. And it has a specific size of bowl to allow for good swirl and the release of the aromas and flavours. So I will take that from you. So we've poured it in the ritual. So I've poured it out for the guest, for the host. The host has agreed. I'm going to start pouring a little bit of wine for your guests.
Look at this colour.
There we are. We're also I'm going to take you through how we properly taste a wine.
I would just taste it. Well, look at this red.
It's wine. Gorgeous. It's full body. It's youthful. It's purpley in colour, purpley red in colour.
Thank you. Wow.
So, to freshly taste a wine, what we're doing is, first of all, we are swirling the glass. We're swirling the glass, and it's good to have a little bit of wine in the glass, because otherwise if the wine's too full, you'll spill the wine everywhere. There we are. We swirl. Yeah, and then we take a big nose, so we put our noses in the glass, and we take a big sniff.
This is just amazing.
It is.
And now I'll be. It's
Can you tell me any flavors that can you tell me any
blackcurrant?
fruity blackcurrant,
Yeah.
plum,
Yeah.
has a touch of spice in the nose?
Yeah.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
When a wine has a bit of spice, that's indicative of a wine coming from a hotter region.
Okay.
So it could just be the characteristic of the grape itself. It also does spicy characteristics. They lend themselves to oak aging. So spicy flavors can come from oak, but also it's an
It's a
indicative
bit
of
of blackcurrant.
blackcurrant.
Yeah.
Indeed, so it's a youthful wine. So it's fresh, it's fruity, it's plush.
Mm.
Blackcurrant, plum, ripe plum, and a touch of spice, and it's pronounced on the nose, so that means when we say it's pronounced, we mean that we can really smell the flavour, that we can really smell the wine. So when we're tasting wine, now it's time for the tasting. We need to allow for the air to come into our palates, and that means slurping the wine. It's not that courteous to do it in a restaurant setting, of course, but when you're in a professional setting, it's absolutely acceptable to slurp and appreciate the wine in such a way.
Wow.
And what that's done, that's allowed me to taste the alcohol, the acidity, the body, and I've been able to assess the quality and the style of wine. And with that aeration in the mouth, that helps with all of that. So
now that leaves a real sort of a real taste in your mouth.
Indeed, it does,
and it allows. And that just sort of means that you can absorb all the flavours.
Indeed, and the textures as well. So,
but when you drink, you don't do that.
You don't do that when you're drinking.
Consumer, don't.
The average consumer, the average consumer would take a sip. So would take a big sip and just let the wine sit around the palate. It's absolutely.
And you,
fine.
as obviously sommelier, you do that because this give you a bit more clear idea how to describe
and how to evaluate the wine. Indeed,
and to give the right advice to you. So I'm just going to taste it.
So you can taste it. You're all welcome to slurp or taste, but it's what we call a youthful wine. So any wine, we say generally in the wine world, any wine that is below 5 years of age is considered to be a youthful wine. Any wine that is of 5 years of age or older is considered to be an older wine. That's how the wine world considers wine, is that actually wine's getting on a bit after 5 years of age. But then it depends. If a wine's suitable for aging, then of course you'll have different flavours that develop over time. I love the taste of older wines. I love seeing and tasting a journey.
And they come generally smoother?
Are they generally smoother? They can be. Bordeaux wines, for example, they're well made for. A lot of Bordeaux wines are made for further aging, and you will find smoother a profile as the wine ages, as it declines. But many wines hold their own throughout the years, and you'll still be able to taste that youthful and full flavour after many years in the bottle for certain wines. Just depends on what wine you're drinking and the region, etc., etc. So there we are. But have you tasted the wine yet?
No,
you tasted the wine. What did you
did?
So you tasted it. You like the wine?
It's like light. I don't know. Probably I'm talking not correct terminology, but. It's like light, if I can.
It's easy drinking, yeah. Yes, so it's easy drinking, yeah.
Talking about Malbec and this, this is like lighter.
Yes,
I can feel it. I don't know how correct I describe that, but yeah. And the thing is that in the minute I drank, it wasn't my favorite, but once
it's lingered
a little bit, it stay in. Obviously,
yes, yeah,
and the wine, of course. What is called,
yes, yeah. So finish,
it's really nice.
Yeah,
so it's really strange, but definitely the aftertaste. I like it.
And you can tell it's a very bright. It's like sort of when it hits the palate, it's like it's sort of on your mouth. Like
yes, it has a sharpness to it.
Yes, a sharpness to it.
Yes, yeah.
Now for me, straight away, if I'm thinking about this wine,
okay,
I'm immediately thinking I would rather drink a wine like this with a meal.
Okay.
Particularly some wines you know, like it might be like a summer's day, and you have like a refreshing wine. But this is definitely a wine I would choose to drink with a meal, maybe with like a heavier meal, like sort of like a stew,
Yes,
or
yeah,
like maybe sort of beef or
yeah,
lamb. And I think something like that would really sort of work nicely with a wine like this,
absolutely, yeah.
because
So
it also, you tend to find as well. I don't. I mean, you'll tell me whether I'm right or wrong, but sometimes when you're eating and you're drinking, a wine can taste very different.
absolutely, it can, it can. Um, so so really, the a good rule of thumb to follow when pairing food and wine together is to pair like for like flavors and pair like for like profiles. So if you have, say, a highly acidic wine, you would pair that with a highly acidic food. If you have a very sweet wine, you might want you. If you have a very sweet food, you may or may not want to pair that with a very sweet wine. If you have a bold dish like a char grilled steak or a tomato ragu with lots of pasta, then you might want to pair that particular dish with something full like a Côte de Rhône.
Mm.
Or if you have a selection of charcuterie meats, then something full-bodied, and full-flavored would pair really well with it. So like for like flavors, like for like profiles, and that's how we create a balanced pairing. So, for example, Montepulciano, the grape in Italy, that's considered to be a very lighter wine, a very light style. Pinot Noir also tends to lend itself to becoming a very light to medium body style. So you would normally pair those types of wines with lighter style dishes. Of course, it depends on how the wine is made and whether or not it's aged in oak, and whether or not it has a fuller body than the next wine or whatever. So it really does depend on the style of the wine versus the style of the dish to really create that balance of a pairing.
So, like
there
an
we are.
easy tip for whoever is listening us
Go on.
to pair wine with even casual meals.
Or if you're looking for a general all-rounder wine, Beaujolais wines are known as the sandwich wine. So Beaujolais wines can actually pair with pretty much anything that you pair
Again,
with it.
Beaujolais is red.
It's made from the Gamay grape. Tends to be made from the Gamay grape. It's light to medium body, fruity. Tends to be made in a youthful style. Some of the Beaujolais crus can be made to age for a few years, and that will give you different flavors when you open the bottle, and that will also determine what type of food that you'd pair it with. So Beaujolais really is a good all rounder. Merlot, a good grape. Say a Languedoc Merlot or even a Chilean Merlot, just to give you that bit of spice. They are all really good all-rounder examples if you just want to find a red in particular. Riesling, if we're going to white wines, Riesling is a great all-rounder grape to pair with pretty much anything, or a light to medium-bodied Chardonnay. Those are the styles of whites that would also pair with pretty much anything.
And that's why a lot of restaurants would have quite a selection of those kind of wines.
Indeed, the middle ground.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, the old reliable, so to speak,
and almost like sort of when you go into a restaurant and then maybe have a house wine, a house red and a house white, they would probably come from those varieties, I would imagine. They'd be selected as a balanced all-rounder wine.
Indeed, they would be. So in the wine world, there are 8 principal grape varietals that exist. So we've got Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay, Syrah or Shiraz, Pinot Grigio or Pinot Gris, and three Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, and the last one, Pinot Noir. So those are all the 8 principal grape varietals, and then everything else is all indigenous grape varietals. So Malbec is not considered as a principal grape varietal. But so if you know the 8 sort
Is
of
it
golden
something
grape
coming
varietals.
from Merlot? Because for years I love Merlot will be my choice until I tried Malbec. And now definitely Malbec is my personal choice for red wine.
So Merlot tends to be made tends to produce a softer body, so you'll get a softer profile in the wine. And Malbec is very full-bodied, very chocolatey, very powerful. And Merlot is more of a softening wine. It's more of a sort of medium body. So basically, you'll find you generally tend to find Merlot at between 12.5 to 13.5% of alcohol by volume. So those are the differences really. Merlot tends to be made in a slightly softer way than Malbec, but if Merlot can also be blended to produce a full-bodied wine. But there we are. So
how about the wine regions? Is there, obviously, as we mentioned earlier, we knew France, Italy, but I was surprised when I've been advised to try
Argentinian,
Australian wines.
Yeah.
And probably they're nothing new for people who know about wine, but are there any
other unusual
interest-
regions? So for many years, as an impartial taster, of course, I have to be very impartial and give everyone a fair score, and give every region a fair chance. But one in particular, a wine growing region that I find interesting, Cretian wines.
Interesting.
Cretian wines.
Okay.
What I love about them is the fact that on the Cretian islands you will find that vineyards would produce indigenous grape varietals, really interesting indigenous grape varietals. There's a particular producer called Lyraricus, and they are handmade. They are a small family-run producer, harvesting grapes by hand. The Greek islands tend to lend themselves to being very high altitude, so vineyards that are planted above 500 meters above sea level. So that also lends that type of environment. It can be very cool during the evening, very hot during the day. So you get really a dichotomy of growing condition in Crete and the Greek islands in that way, with what's called a high diurnal range. So, but the indigenous grape varietals I'm very interested in, Daphne being one of them, and the Lyraricus estate that I just mentioned. Actually, they were responsible for bringing back some grape varietals that were going to be considered extinct, and they brought them back from the brink. And you'll get the flavors are so unique. Daphne, for example, is one of my favorite grapes on the island of Crete. That is a white grape varietal, by the way. So it gives you that rosemary, basil, laurel leaf, and all those wonderful citrus flavors. All the Greek islands. If you want to find something interesting, find a wine from Crete. I would thoroughly recommend it.
And here I will recommend something. Bulgaria. I don't know if you ever tried
Bulgarian wines,
Bulgarian
Eastern
wines.
European,
There is one particular variety, as far as I'm aware, of grape that is only in Bulgaria. I think it's Mavrut in English.
Lovely.
But
Okay.
I'm going to find a bottle for you, but from a quality producer, and I'll bring to you, because that will be really interesting to hear your opinion about it. Because I know I've got a friend who is a really wine lover.
Yes, indeed.
And he was saying that obviously this is getting in the list of really top wine and really good wine, and it's apparently only in Bulgaria produced. But obviously this conversation now take me to that, and I'll find something.
I appreciate that. But of
It's
course,
into new varieties and new areas, and I think as well, because of climate variances across the globe.
Yes, yeah, indeed.
And obviously, and different soil types. So different vineyards have different varieties of grapes because that particular grape suits a particular soil. So obviously, in Bulgaria, it would be slightly different in for example, New Zealand or Australia. That the soils are different and the climates are changing, and obviously the temperature profile. Yeah. I mean, you mentioned the temperature profile changing in Crete, particularly. Because you don't think necessarily a lot of the Greek islands, although they've got a few mountain areas that you won't find too many above 500 meters. But
yes, yeah,
it's quite interesting because, as you say, in the daytime the temperature can go really hot. Yes. But as soon as you get higher up, the temperature can go really cold.
Absolutely.
And it's like in this country. I mean, all of a sudden in the United Kingdom, we're starting to get lots of wine varieties in the United Kingdom.
We are indeed.
And people always say, "Well, grapes are never going to grow here because it's never warm enough." But actually, sort of here in the southeast, it's starting to get to the point where the climate is changing, and in the summers it becomes drier and slightly sunnier and warmer, particularly on the
Kent. Let's talk about Kent, because we can see
absolutely.
So many wineries. I never knew about that until I think we've been together on an event that was particularly. We talk about the wineries. There was a lady who was. Sharing the experience, and she's doing wine tours.
Yes,
and I would never expect that around that place there will be 5 or 6 wineries. So what is your experience with that? How you find English wine?
So, fun enough, I won't name the estate, but I
Yeah,
have worked for English wineries before, and I'm also indirectly connected with another English wines. I'd say for in the past 6 or 7 years, there's been a new appreciation for it. Kent has been growing grapes for winemaking for many, many years, but really in the most recent times, and of course, as you mentioned, Richard, with climate change, with a warmer climate, we can produce better grapes and better quality grapes in a way. There's a new appreciation for Kent wine and Kent sparkling wines. So just on the topic of Kent itself, so what makes it unique in the wine world? There's a general consensus of where the ideal vineyards are around the world. They lie in two bands. So we have 50 and 30 degrees of north latitude in the northern hemisphere. Then in the southern hemisphere, it's 50 to 30 in the southern hemisphere. That hold the best growing wine regions in the world. Kent sits 51 degrees north. So it sits just above that ideal band.
Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now with climate change,
Yeah.
that band has shifted. I think it's Gusborne. Produce a wine called 51 degrees north to pay homage to where it is geographically on the earth. It's a growing region. It tends to have a climate of up to 16.5 degrees during the growing season. You would have moderate climates in the world, say for example in Burgundy, anything between 16.5 and 18.5 degrees. Any region with that climate, with those sorts of climate temperatures.
Average temperature.
Average growing temperature, correct. So we're in a cool climate at the moment. Yes. We're in a cool climate. Our growing season doesn't generally exceed 16.5 degrees, and the growing season in the northern hemisphere, the grape growing season starts in March and it finishes in October. And then in the southern hemisphere, it's the other way around because the seasons are reversed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. So we harvest. So in the UK, we tend to harvest our grapes between September and October, and then we go into winter dormancy after that.
Yeah.
And then in the southern hemisphere, it's completely the opposite. So in Kent itself, sparkling wines, the classic grape varietals, the classic what we call the noble grape varietals that are grown. So Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, Pinot Meunier, and they grow really well in a cool climate. And then we have some German grape varietals. So we have Reichsteiner, we have Reichsteiner, we have another one, I don't think it's quite German. Müller-Thurgau is another one. You can grow at the moment cool climate grape varietals, and that is changing. I know a vineyard that's starting to grow Merlot. That's unheard of in the UK.
Wow, because that's normally much.
With cool climate wines, with Kent wines, you'd normally find high acidity in a light body. So basically, acidity, how we identify acidity is that zing along the jawline. So if you imagine sucking on a lemon, imagine that salivation in the mouth. That's how we identify acidity in a wine. And with Kent wines, they tend to be made very acidically because we're in a cool climate. So in a cool climate, the acidity in the grape increases and the sugar level drops in the grape. In a warmer climate, the sugar level increases and the acidity level drops. So you'll get more sugar in a grape from a hotter climate than you would do from a grape in a cooler climate. You get more acidity in a cooler climate. That's sort of a general behaviour of Vitis vinifera, which is the Latin name for the grape varietal for the grapevine responsible for the wine that we're drinking. So, and there are others there are other strains of Vitis vinifera, but Vitis is the most common grape species for winemaking. So there we are. Yeah. So an introduction into Kent for you, but
No, it's interesting. Yeah, it's getting, and we are big. We love sparkling Kent wine, if I must be honest. We did try a few. We've been to places that they've been kind of promoted.
We've been able to try, yeah.
So, I definitely say.
And it's interesting because really when we talk about wines particularly, I mean, I think the Champagne district in France,
yes,
which is
I've been there
300 miles sort of this way.
I've been there.
And yet here we are, a similar type of soil.
Yes, yeah.
So the chalky soil sort of comes across exactly the same as in the Champagne district, or very similar. So and I think more and more it's interesting because we don't sort of, like, as you said, we don't tend to associate maybe so many with the red wines grapes,
Yes, yeah.
and but white wine grapes, I'm sure there are lots.
Yes,
But
yeah.
I think primarily people are thinking about white sparkling wine,
Yes, yeah.
and the comparisons now between some of the grape varieties we have in Kent and some of the grape varieties there are in the Champagne region are very similar. And the quality of Kent wines is increasing dramatically
And comparable,
and
yeah.
very compatible with even some of the finest Champagne names. Yeah, and those vineyards, I mean, some of them have got incredible names, and some
Yes,
of the
yeah.
Kent wineries are actually very much comparable and probably represent today probably better value than some of the Champagne
And the
wines.
French counterparts. To be a winemaker and producing wine, what it really should be the purpose of any winemaker in the world is to be unique. And I'll give you an example of this thinking in Cava in Spain.
Yes.
So Cava is made in exactly the same way as champagne.
Yeah.
But the grassroots producers in Cava, they would object to using the same grape varietals that you would find in France, and they would use three indigenous grape varietals. They'd use Parello, and another one I can't remember. But they would use indigenous grape varietals instead of the grape varietals that you find in France, because those grassroots producers agree with being unique. They agree with producing a wine that has uniqueness and it has standing in its own right. So really, my comment on the England versus French debate in terms of the sparkling wines is that if you're a producer of English wine or sparkling wine, find what's unique, make yourselves unique, because what is the point in producing a French champagne in Kent? I'll just go to the supermarket and buy a bottle of champagne. But if I want an English sparkling wine, I want to know what's unique about it, and I want to know why I should be buying into sparkling wine instead of the French. So one of the main purposes of that a producer should always have is to be unique in the marketplace and be unique for the consumer. So there we are.
So now I'll take you. Thank you very much, because that was
We've
lots of
learnt a lot.
information
Very
for wine.
No,
But
I
it's
could be
lovely
going on
and
and on.
it's good.
Yeah.
And do you know what as well? I noticed quite a lot of people around me. I start to notice that they start to enjoy and want to learn more about wine. And it's not only wine to go and just to drink a bottle. It doesn't matter what it is.
Indeed, yeah.
They start to really appreciate and
The experience,
enjoy.
yes, yeah.
Which is really good thing. I want to speak now a little bit more about you, obviously your journey in particular. And as we talked before starting recording, you are quite young. And I want to hear about the difficulties, because I'm pretty sure you had some, to establish yourself and to make people look at you seriously and believe in you and your knowledge, because you've got lots of knowledge. You are driven by passion, which is one of the most important what was the word? Yes, aspects. So how you overcome that, how you react on certain situations, just your experience, how.
So I'm the sort of person that's very accepting of different cultures and different generations. When I was working full time in the restaurant trade, I would see so many different clientele coming into the restaurants, and I would be the sommelier that would present myself and would offer my service. And I'll always say to the guest, "My name's Brian. I'm the sommelier this evening. I'm on hand if you'd like my help with a wine list or selecting the pairing for you, or indeed if I'm the sommelier that's actually pairing the wines for the dishes, I would present myself and align myself accordingly. I'm someone who's learnt how to adjust to different different generations and different cultures and different practices. So how I would adjust is by really reading the person. And certainly when you're working in a restaurant, you get to learn how to read people if they want to be if they want your help, if they don't want to be helped, or if they don't want to be disturbed. You almost sort of get the vibe, but it's I'm blessed with being able to observe very well. I would always ensure that whatever information I'm giving, whether that's wine or whether that's service, or I would ensure that my delivery is accessible, it's approachable. So what's up here might be very complex, but it needs to be delivered in a very simple way and very accessible way. And sharing stories, and the good thing when you're meeting people is to like we're doing today, we're sharing stories, and those stories can align with other people. I don't want to force myself on people. I don't like to impose myself on people, or my knowledge, or impose my knowledge on anyone. And if I get the vibe that the particular person doesn't want to learn about wine or doesn't really want my service, I will respect that. I'll respect that. But there's a small minority of people out there that actually say, no, thank you very much indeed for your help, but I'm fine with the wine list, or I'm fine with the menu. That's absolutely fine. And they have a set choice already in their mind of what wine they're going to select.
But I may say no, thank you, just because
You could be nervous.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would usually, if someone approached me, probably now we talk again about different kind of restaurants. I don't know your experience. Probably it's in a bit more.
But I think if you go into a restaurant and they have a sommelier, then immediately that lifts that restaurant to a different level. Because I think whenever I've experienced going into a restaurant where there is a sommelier, because the first thing the sommelier will normally ask you is, what are you going to choose to eat? Because that makes quite a difference. Because if you're choosing certain foods, the wine that you're going to have with that particular food it can be very different.
Yes,
and also the sommelier, one of the most, as we said earlier, when you walk into a supermarket and often a lot of people will do this, they'll choose by the price and whether they like the look of the label. Almost the label, because that's the thing that gives them the impact. Go, that's a great name. That looks nice. Okay, well, I'll buy that, and it's £10 a bottle, or it's £15 a bottle. I'll buy that. But if you go into a restaurant, you've got potentially the price of the wine is generally more expensive because obviously you're in a restaurant environment. So you want to choose wisely, and the thing is, unless you've eaten in that restaurant before and you've tried that particular wine and you say, well, I really like that. When you choose by a wine group, it doesn't necessarily help you. Whereas if you've got the sommelier to explain to you, well, actually, the pairing of that particular wine and the story behind that, and you might turn around and say, well, Richard, I've just been to this particular vineyard and I've met the owner, and honestly, we've tried that. And honestly, you will find that this will just balance beautifully with that, and that story and that excitement. And if you can miss out a lot on the experience, because
but it's again
so
about people. Some people are not that open, and
absolutely.
Some people are more nervous too.
Absolutely. So the mark of a good sommelier, is one that would ask the questions. So Meri, I'll address you by your surname, but in this case, so Meri, what do you tend to drink? What's your comfort? Do you like a full-bodied wine? Do you like a lighter style wine? Do you like something with a high acidity? Do you like something fruity, something older? I would start asking the questions and then tailoring my recommendation to your answers, because what I'm doing is I'm finding out your needs, and I'm finding out if you like this particular wine.
You're checking your spreadsheet in the computer,
and that's the mark of a good sommelier. Is that they'll be able to ask you the questions and tailor recommendations to your particular taste, and so ascertain if you like this particular grape. Are you willing to try something different? And it's just that little jump that we want you to make, but we're not certain yet. So we're just testing the waters with our questions. And then what a good sommelier would do is they would say, if you don't like the wine, I'm more than happy to change it, because you would already have a plan to have. So when I was in restaurants, I was blessed with the freedom of changing the wines on the spot. So if the guest didn't like the wine, no problem. We'd open something up and we'd sell that by the glass. We'd open something else and pair it. So really, it's about being dynamic. How I've been able to align myself with the particular market. The particular market is being dynamic and actually tailoring my recommendations to to the guest and asking those questions. And I'm not that comfortable.
What are the most important lessons you learn in the restaurant, in the hospitality industry up until now, before you start your freelance?
I will say, never admit a job is easy, because it can be made 10 times harder.
Interesting. Good.
Okay.
Good answer.
Good one,
Yeah. Because it can either be made 10 times harder through your own doing, or it could be made 10 times harder by those above. So whilst what a professional would do may seem very easy, always have development, always be passionate about development and improvement, and never admit that a job is easy, because it can be made absolutely 10 times harder through your own doing or through someone else's doing. That's
great.
That's the biggest
And if
lesson
I must be
learned.
honest, you can always, that remind me waitressing job. Very often people are saying, oh, that's an easy one. Waitressing job is not easy.
It's not easy.
But the good thing is that if you are a really good waiter,
Yeah.
you do stand out.
And you hold
And
your
you
own.
know.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
everybody can go and be a waiter, but it's very, you can easily see who is really passionate and do it. And I'm pretty sure people who, it's again, we talk about the service, isn't it? Is
Yes,
it going to be
yeah.
a waiter, a bartender, a sommelier?
Exactly.
The service. And
So
this,
my former boss actually told me a wonderful story about when he was at a particular restaurant, and he was just sitting there with his family observing the service. There was one waitress, very good, very clean, almost very corporate, almost very robotic, knew her stuff, knew her stuff, very knowledgeable, with everything, very smart, very well presented. She had the face of the back end of a donkey. She did not. She honestly, she did not smile once. She was very robotic,
Wow.
very
Which is-
straightforward. When my former boss compared her with another waitress, hair all over the place, a bit scruffy, but very, very friendly and approachable. Guess what? My former boss gave that member of
Second
staff
one.
a 50 quid tip, because the service that he received from the less professional waitress, although she was less knowledgeable, she actually had the personal and approachable service. So that just tells you, having that approachableness and that welcomeness, that sets you apart from someone who knows their stuff. They might be very knowledgeable, they might be very professional, but actually, if they don't have the personality to match, they will give you the worst service.
Yes, yeah. Although they know everything as per book and etc. It's
But
all
if
about the
exactly, if they
personal touch.
don't approach you in an approachable manner and they're not friendly, then they will give you the worst service, compared to the friendlier one that will give you that smile and that give you that charm. But there we go.
How do you build your relationships now in your work for your, because obviously now freelancing is not an easy.
No, I love my networking, and of course, we all met at a wonderful networking event here in Kent, and now we're here together talking about the other opportunities. So how I find opportunities, I'm also on a particular freelance platform that puts me in touch with clients, and in a professional manner. I'm also advertising on my website, so I have a website, brianknowswine.com, that where prospective clients can get in touch if they're looking for a particular service. So if they're looking for a sommelier service, what they would do on this platform is they would type in sommelier services, and they would find me and others. And if they want to get in touch, they can get in touch. So I'm on certain platforms that give me that advertisement, and also that ability for prospective clients to come through. So I, funny enough, had a client on last week, a private client through one of my platforms. Of course, word of mouth is the most powerful method of marketing. If you get if you give someone a good service, if you give a client a good service, they'll recommend you, and the cycle goes on and on. So really, those are the how I procure my client base, is having an online presence and having the ability to have my clients have potential clients come and contact me, and giving a good service.
How you find it in the beginning? Because obviously being in the hospitality industry, and before you start the freelance, you were restaurant
Restaurant
manager.
manager, yes.
So what was that step? Obviously, from something that you know your income is coming every month, you know everything is stable, and then you have to step up in the world where you have to create for yourself all these opportunities and job. How did you manage?
I think so. So now we're sort of going into the world of the so-called gig economy. I think nowadays, what's already been discussed at the early stage of this year, more and more people are having side hustles. How I managed to continue is I've joined agencies. So there's benefits and drawbacks with joining agencies, but at least it gives you that ad hoc continuity. Yeah. So joining agencies, and then the agencies can find you workplaces, and they can give you that continuity. So it is tough when you don't have the security, but by the same token, it's balanced by the fuel to take the plunge and to take the risk, and that's part of the risk that any freelancer takes, or any new coming freelancer takes, is the lack of continuity in work. And you either, and it can be a very cruel world if you don't know how to handle it. You either sink or swim. But I'm blessed with good contacts. I'm blessed with having joined certain agencies to give me that continuity and give me work in different places, and then build my business, build my business for the rest of the time. Many people they're embracing the freelance culture, and they're embracing the ad hoc culture, because you have the freedom. You have the freedom of the schedule. You have the ability to become a professional in your own right, and to deliver your services to a particular business. And actually, that's, in a way, that's sad to say in the face of employment, because I think the employment world should take a leaf out of the freelance world, because you're still providing your services. You're still delivering the best quality services to your employer, even though you're not freelance. So really, being a professional in your own right, for me, the freelancing works, and it might not work for other people. So it's how I've been able to balance it. That's
I think one of the biggest dividers will probably be if for example, someone was having a function. So whether it's in their house.
Yes.
And they were deciding a reasonable sized dinner party, and they were inviting a number of guests.
Last week.
The opportunity to which would stand that dinner party out would be, we decided to have Brian come along and be a sommelier for the evening.
Yeah.
And he's going to choose. He's brought a selection of lovely wines for us to try.
Yes.
And that gives us something really special. So everyone's going to go home going, well, that was a memorable night, because not only we had a great chat and an evening, but we had a chance to try some different wines, which is obviously really exciting.
Yes, yeah.
And the difference between, for example, if you're an employed sommelier working in just a hotel and you've been promoted to that position, you're probably still in that learning phase. Whereas for you, if you get brought into an event, with your level of expertise, your ability to communicate, and to open up the option in an amazing way to present to the people, that passion that you have for the wine and the wines that you really like, and you can communicate the story of that wine, is so different maybe from, because everyone then is in an open, relaxed environment and actually willing and interested to learn, because they almost know that, well, actually, if you come to my party and there's 12 of you coming, and we're going to have a sommelier, I go, wow, that'd be amazing.
That's what happened last week.
But it's opened much more doors for
it
you.
Has.
You can meet so many different people.
Absolutely. Which brings us to a particular subject, if I may, to broach, and that's an expert witnessing. So I've told you both about my experience as an expert witness, but for the benefit of this chat, let's talk about it. So I'm a prospective member of a certain organisation that can put me in touch with law firms that are seeking an expert witness in a particular field of expertise. So there's litigation and there's a court order to allow for an expert witness to give an opinion. I've joined prospectively this particular organisation that can put me in touch with a law firm, with law firms that need an expert witness. So my particular expert field is wine. I was officially instructed as an expert witness in the field of wine for a contentious litigation, just because I was part of an organisation, an expert witness organisation, given my experience in the field. As you say, opening up opportunities, expert witnessing is a brand new field, and I was instructed as an expert witness, and I was away for 3 months on this particular assignment to produce an investigation. You have to be very unbiased. You have to be very fair and impartial. And one of the elements that I've learned through training is to be impartial and to give everyone a fair score, give every producer a fair score. And your duty as an expert witness is to the court.
Now, on that circumstance, so Brian, so just for the listeners, so potentially, so with wine, I mean, I've got no idea.
Go ahead.
So what are we looking at? Are we looking at a bottle which has maybe got the wrong label on it and being sold as an impersonating of another wine and being upsold as a very expensive wine when it's a cheap wine?
Yeah.
So I guess that could be one.
That could be a case, yeah.
What sort of things would you be looking at?
What I'll be looking at for wine fraud. So there's opportunity for an expert witness to be instructed by the CPS to investigate fraudulent wine. So there's lots of civil opportunities with expert witnessing in the field of wine. For example, the wrong wine's bottled, or it has the wrong type of closure, or the wine's not made right, or the producers relied on someone else to produce the wine and the wine's turned out to be absolutely bad. So there are lots of different opportunities. This gave me the opportunity to utilise my expertise and to give my expert opinion. So for me, being validated as an expert in your field is one of the greatest achievements that anyone can have.
Okay, as here we're talking about inspiration, who played a big role of inspiration for you up until now?
Certainly, it is my dad that is my biggest inspiration, because he introduced me into the world of experimentation. He taught me that it is okay to experiment and try different things and try different flavors. Now I can tell you that when I was 5 years of age, don't ask me how, but I was spoilt rotten with real frying pans. So I had a collection of real frying pans. My family thought I was going to become a chef. So they thought, you know what, we'll invest in some frying pans for Brian and see if he becomes a chef one day. It didn't happen. But so I had all this cupboard. I had this cupboard of different frying pans, all for me. Because actually they thought, well, one day he's going to use them and become a chef and he's going to need.
Now you just pair the nice wine with the nice food.
Indeed. So by extension, so really
experts on pancakes as well.
Indeed, I am an expert on pancakes. I can make a mean crepe. So really the hospitality side of things stemmed from my dad, and the knowledge to experiment and try different things and try different flavors. That would be sort of certainly my biggest inspiration. And my biggest takeaway is that never be afraid to try something new and take the plunge, because if you don't take the plunge, when on earth are you going to do it? If you have this ambition, if you have this burning ambition, one day you're going to do it. When is that day? Is there really a right time? Don't be afraid to try to test the waters and try something new. And if you have that burning passion, go for it. If you feel the time is right, go for it. And don't hold back. And that's one of the
a good one, because we always wait until tomorrow, until Monday, until New Year.
Exactly.
It's always tomorrow.
And but okay, have you got any particular habit that help you, or you can challenge our listeners to implement in their daily life?
I like to start the morning off really well. Bit of an odd one, this one, but as a ritual, even in the winter, I would leave my window open at night. I think it's called the Norwegian method of sleeping or something like that. But basically, having fresh air coming into the room overnight really helps to bring fresh air into the room, and it helps you to have a fresh start to the day. Wrapping yourself up really warm in bed actually gives you a very fresh start in the morning. I love my porridge, so I'd have porridge in the morning every day. So a good bowl of porridge and having the window open at night. Those are the two basic behaviours that I do to help me through the day. So if you start the day off well, you are set up for the rest of the day. Find your morning routine. And don't be afraid of change, of course. We all need to, routines change and life changes, but find your comfort and stick to it and start the day off really well. And then you're set up for the rest of the day.
And have you had any mentors over the years, like sort of to help you and guide you, particularly with the sommelier journey, that really have given you some real good guidance?
Yes, I have. I have to give due credit to Michael Burack. So Michael Burack was my wine tutor at the London Wine School. He's since retired. And he's taught many students over the years. And one of the great piece of advice that he gave all of us in class is that a sight of a label is worth 50 years of experience. And that was that he got that quote from the late Michael Broadbent, the great wine auctioneer and wine master. And he says, the reason why I tell you that is it will take 50 years for you to fully understand the wine, a label and a wine. So don't be afraid to get things wrong, because sommeliers always get things wrong. Sommeliers are not infallible. And that was a great piece of advice that he gave. He also gave the advice of picking grapes for winemaking. Go and do it. And I did take that advice, and actually being out in the vineyard and being responsible for the quality of the grapes that go into making wine, it really is a truly unique experience, because the experience that I came into was actually great. It was grape sorting at the vine. So normally with a big vineyard, you would the grapes would be picked indiscriminately and then have to be sorted later, so to remove any debris from the selection. The experience that I had was actually you're sorting the grapes out from the vine, and you're picking the best ones, and you're cutting the best grapes from the vine to ensure that what you are selecting is quality fruit to go into the wine. And that really, following a wine from grape to bottle, that is, that's the great piece of advice that I was given is if you have the chance to go and pick grapes, go and do it.
What are you doing in your free time? How you recharge yourself? How you relax? What is your... Obviously, you're listening Meet Your Inspiration podcast, but what else?
Indeed, I am. Indeed. I love to read.
Do you travel?
Do I travel? I'd like to travel a lot more. But I do travel when I can. I'm going on the road and heading out and driving out and clearing my head. I like to watch documentaries. I do like to watch intellectual long form content about a particular subject area. Of course, when I can meet up with friends, but for me, I know how to unwind in my own space, and that's
the good thing is that with so much networking and events that you go,
absolutely,
I'm surrounded by people,
and I'm surrounded
cool.
by new opportunities.
Yes.
So it helps me. It helps me, a lot in that sense. And of course, we go back to the professional side of things. Continual professional development can often happen when you don't realise it. You can learn something about your particular field when you're out and about, and that would lend itself to becoming a good idea for your business or a good idea for a project that you're doing. So continual professional development can happen, when you least expect it. You don't have to necessarily do particular things or have a particular project. That continual professional development, it can happen when you're out and about, meeting people, bumping into people, having conversation. And often, I can't remember where I found this advice from, but the best ideas and the best businesses and the best projects happen by accident. They really do. Yeah. When you're out and about,
fall into ideas.
Indeed.
Yeah,
happen by accident.
And
And then the story goes. And funny enough, Now we talk about the world of sommeliering. Actually, the world of sommeliering is changing, and it has changed a lot. We don't necessarily need to wine. We need to know about all of the other spirits and all the other beverages. We need to know about tea, coffee, mineral water, sake, beers. So because often sommeliers would work in a restaurant, so you'd be approached by different clientele that would want different beverages, and I have to be mindful of that. So also I go to a lot of tea tastings. So with that continual professional development. So I've attended a few tea tastings in London and learnt about how the teas are grown and in the different countries and how they're picked, etc., and the market trends, and that helps me to keep up to date. And it's very important for sommeliers to keep up to date and to keep yourself relevant.
As you mentioned, teas. Obviously, tea. Obviously, most people when they go out these days are going out into a restaurant and they're having a drink. Obviously, more and more today, people are very conscious about drinking and driving, and very much. Obviously, there's quite a range now of non-alcoholic wines and beverages.
Yes, there are.
So, is that something you find is a growing trend as well? And even in the sommelier space, in terms of for wine, are there more and more non-alcoholic wines which are available where you can even do the same type of pairing and get similar flavours but without the alcohol?
Absolutely, and I can name a producer, Dr. Lewson, who famously produces alcoholic Riesling and alcoholic wines on the estate. Dr. Lewson also produces a wine called Dr. No, and it's a non-alcoholic Riesling. And I'll tell you something, that classic petrol-y note that you would normally find with a New World Riesling, you will find it in that non-alcoholic wine. You will find the hallmarks of a good Riesling in a non-alcoholic wine. So I think certainly the non-alcoholic space is growing, and it has been growing for a few years. But certainly people are looking for alternatives, and people are looking for non-alcoholic alternatives to enjoy themselves with. There's certainly a greater responsibility on wine producers, alcoholic wine producers, to produce a non-alcoholic line of wines, so customers and clients can receive the same level of quality of wine without the alcohol. And certainly, it's a space that should be championed and should be explored.
I think we cover quite a lot. Definitely, obviously, if we haven't mentioned, we are just talking about the nice experience of wine and
Indeed.
Drinking, of course, responsible. And we exactly talk about to enjoy the glass of wine, not to go and drink a lot. So definitely drink responsible.
Indeed,
we do support. But before we finish, you bring some tools and you forget.
Yes. My apologies. These tools here. So there are many different tools to open up a bottle of wine on the marketplace. This is a classic waiter's friend. So it has a worm with it, and there's a lever on one side. You would thread with a corked wine with a wine that is closed with a cork. If it's a particular tough cork with a new cork, you would screw the worm down first in the centre, and then you would use the lever to leverage yourself up and out. I've corked wines before for a particular winery, and they are corked with great pressure, but they're not glued in place or anything like that. They are essentially pushed in with down force. So you can use a manner of different tools to open it. But so this is great. So the waiter's friend is great for youthful wines or tough corks or technical corks or plastic corks. This tool here, which is my ultimate favourite, and I often tell my guests and clients a story about this, and this is called a butler's thief or a butler's friend. Okay, so never seen this before. No. Wow, so it's a new revelation for you, and it is designed to extract delicate or fragile corks or older corks, and it keeps the cork entirely intact. Now, the reason why it's called a butler's thief is because a certain German butler that worked in the manor house in the 1800s invented this tool to replace the bad wine with the good wine, sent the bad wine upstairs and kept the good wine for himself, put the cork back in the bottle so no one knew anything different. So that's why, and I tell that story to all my guests, all my clients, and they absolutely love it. And the thing is, you can keep the cork entirely intact without it crumbling. So it has these blades are not sharp, but one blade is longer than the other, and you would insert the blade down the side of the glass and in between the cork, and then basically you'd wriggle down the shorter end, like so, wriggle it down, and then twist the whole operation up.
So it's one prong in and one prong out, or they're both prongs in?
They're both prongs in, but one in first, then the other.
Oh, okay.
So you would basically leverage it down and then pull it up. But
on next episode, we're going to have with the cork.
Yeah, I think
indeed, the next step is we're going to demonstrate.
And obviously, because we talk about that, what was the difference that they start to change? And because before it was, and even nowadays, you can hear, if there is no cork, it's not a good wine or whatever.
So with closures nowadays, closures are the producer choice. So with a screw cap, the general purpose of it is to ensure that the wine is kept tight. There are different types of screw caps that exist now on the marketplace, but generally speaking, a wine that's closed with a screw cap is designed to be drunk quite young, so no air going in or very little air going in to the wine to age it. So wines under screw cap should really be generally drunk between 1 and 3 years of its life. Wines with a natural cork, would allow for air to enter the bottle for slow aging. So because cork is a natural breathable product. So by having the cork in contact with the wine on its side, as you'd normally see a wine in a cellar, you'd allow that allows for the slow aeration of the wine, and allows for the wine to age further if the wine is designed for that. So really, it depends on the style of the wine being produced, the choice of the winemaker, and market trends. Generally speaking, a wine with screw caps is designed to drunk young, and it does not necessarily mean that the wine is of bad quality.
The wines nowadays, so with this.
Indeed, with screw cap, and there are good value for money wines that exist on the market for and so with the screw cap. So never underestimate the wine inside the bottle of a screw cap. And earlier, what I mentioned is that about wines being corked. And when we say a wine is corked, we mean a wine is affected by what's called TCA. So TCA is a fungal infection. It's short for trichloroanisole. It's a fungal infection that normally enters the cork itself, normally infects the cork itself. It could be found along the winery, but what TCA does, it taints the wine and gives off this wet dog and damp cardboard smell. So if you're in a restaurant and you're being poured a glass of wine, if your wine smells of wet dog or damp cardboard, send it back because it's corked. Contrary to popular belief, screw cap wines can be corked, because if those infected corks are lying around the winery, that infection can actually spread into the wine itself and be bottled into the wine before it's closed. So 2 in every 100 bottles will always be corked.
Which is another reason to test it and to sample.
Always taste the wine. Always taste the wine. Always smell the wine.
Right,
if it's not right, send it back. Right. Indeed.
I think Mary's going to be tasting the wine in future.
Indeed.
I think I will. Yeah, I'll take your advice on board, and I won't be that nervous or worried to say
something. Indeed.
About it. Indeed. Yeah. And if I don't feel it's right for me, I should be.
It's not right for your table. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much, Brian, for coming.
Well, thank you for the chat.
Showing all that and for
it's been a wonderful conversation.
I think we can definitely say cheers to you and good health. And it's been an amazing experience this morning for us both. So we've learned a lot about.
And it's nice that we met you, and it's great. Yeah.
Cheers.
All right, cheers. Thank you so much. Thank you for the conversation. Thank you so much.
So, thank you very much to everyone listening to us today. We've hoped you really enjoyed the episode with Brian. If you'd like some more information about Brian, you'll find some information in the description below. You'll find the website. And if you'd like to hire Brian for an event, please do contact him. I'm sure he'd be delighted to help. So, thank you very much for watching today. If you're watching on YouTube, please do give us a like and please do subscribe to the channel so you can see more episodes coming very soon. And also, if you're watching on Spotify or listening on Spotify, please do give us a follow. Thank you very much, and we'll see you very soon. Take care.